So let's begin with public comment. You want to grab them? I'll grab them. Staff also add for the record if you could state your name and your address. All right, so to start public comment, we're going to begin with the mayor.
Thank you very much, everyone. Good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to speak tonight. I wanted to first take a moment to just tell you how I feel we got here, and then I would like to just read the resolution that we've putting forth to you this evening. And so a few weeks ago, I received a letter from 21 members of our Kingston clergy inviting and encouraging me to be in a dialogue about creating a welcoming and inviting city here and stating our beliefs. And in their letter, they reference Sanctuary City, and they wanted to just know what my position was in regards to immigration and how we treat folks who live, work, and recreate here in our city. And with everything that's happened in the national press and the local press about the divisiveness that has happened in our community over the last couple of weeks, the fear among our immigrant community, among members of different faiths, different backgrounds, different ethnicities, is real. Our world and everything in it sometimes spins really fast, and it's hard for people to center themselves. And I think it's in those situations when public leaders need to stand up and just reaffirm what we believe in and what's important to us. And so I sent a communication to the Common Council indicating my interest to be able to have this discussion, and that I felt it was time for us together to issue a memorializing resolution to put our feelings, our thoughts, our beliefs in writing for our entire community to hear and to understand, so that we can show that we have always been and always will be a city that cares for each and every one of the individuals that live here. And that's important to me, and I think it's important to you. And so I thought that this was a very good topic. And after sending this letter, we've spent the last few weeks speaking with many different organizations who work in these areas. I received dozens and dozens of letters from constituents sharing with me their concerns, their thoughts, their fears about what's going on in the world around them and how they love Kingston, but they want to just be able to make sure that Kingston is a safe place for them and their families. And I think what we all love about this community is that we are diverse, we are inclusive, we are welcoming, and I hope that my resolution that I'm going to read to you in just a moment will emphasize that so that you can see that. But also, regardless of what happens this evening with this resolution, I think that it's extremely critical for us to not let the conflicts that are going on around us define who we are and define the city that we are. And I think that the people of the city define who we are. And so I'm very excited to be able to see so many people out this evening who care about this issue and who care about making sure that everyone in this city, no matter who they are, feel comfortable being here And so I'm just going to read this for the sake of the record and for the sake of folks that don't have this in front of them. So this is a resolution relating to reaffirming Kingston as a welcoming and inclusive city. Whereas the City of Kingston, New York is proud to be a city that values diversity, and whereas the City of Kingston has long considered itself a city of immigrants, and whereas the City of Kingston is committed to upholding and protecting the civil and human rights of all individuals within the city, and has long prohibited discrimination based on race, ethnicity, immigration status, national origin, religion, gender identity, sexual orientation, ability, or other protected characteristics in the provisions of its services. And whereas it is particularly essential to the mission of the city's emergency service departments that victims report crimes or injuries, cooperate fully in investigations, and summon help when needed. And whereas the threat of deportation or prosecution for no reason other than immigration status may discourage residents without legal immigration status or who have family members or friends without legal immigration status from reporting crimes or injuries, cooperating in investigations, seeking opportunities for their children living in this community, or summoning help when needed. And whereas enforcement of federal immigration laws is the prerogative of the federal enforcement agencies, not local law enforcement agencies. And whereas the Kingston Police Department has long held to the practice that it does not inquire into a person's immigration status upon initial contact. And whereas the Kingston Police Department has long determined that it will give full priority to public safety and justice concerns in preference over rigid enforcement of immigration regulations. And whereas the Kingston Police Department, Mayor, and Police Commission will develop policies and procedures as to if and when undocumented foreign nationals will be referred to the appropriate federal agencies. And whereas the City of Kingston has no formal existing agreements to enforce immigration policy, and whereas no other city department inquires into the immigration status of individuals before making government services available to that individual, and whereas these practices are generally considered to be sanctuary city policies, and whereas the Mayor of Kingston has reaffirmed the city's commitment to welcoming and inclusive to all, and supports codifying these city's long-standing practices into city policy, and whereas federal law does not require local law enforcement or other local service providers to inquire into an individual's immigration status or to respond to federal immigration and customs enforcement detainer requests, so that these principles are not inconsistent with federal law. Now therefore be it resolved that the Common Council also reaffirms the City of Kingston's commitment to continue its long-standing and legal practice of not inquiring into the immigration status of individuals before being provided local government services. Thank you very much.
The first speaker we have is Linda Hackett.
My name is Linda Hackett. I live at 70 Wall Street, Kingston. This evening I come before you to proudly speak in favor of the City of Kingston, joining with many other cities across the nation to become a sanctuary city. I support Mayor Steve Noble's strong belief, as stated in Freeman, that if you live and work here in the city, we are going to treat you with the utmost respect each and every day, no matter where you came from or how you got here. A letter to our mayor, signed by many of the fine clergy of the City of Kingston, resonates with me. It states that there is a moral imperative to protect vulnerable populations in the event that forces move against them unfairly or immorally. As the daughter of an immigrant on my father's side, I speak from my heart with the support of my neighbors. As a licensed social worker in the state of New York, I quote from the mission statement of the National Association of Social Workers that the primary mission of the social work profession is to enhance human well-being and help meet the basic human needs of all people, with particular attention to the needs of empowerment of people who are vulnerable. Social workers are sensitive to cultural and ethnic diversity and strive to end discrimination, oppression, etc. My life work was devoted to working as a social worker for the state of New York, and I continue to have an ethical responsibility for this mission. My support for our city becoming a sanctuary city also comes from my membership in the Unitarian Universalist congregation of the Catskills in Kingston, New York. Our first principle, to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, speaks clearly to this responsibility. In support of my strong intention to uphold this principle, I proudly participated with our minister and several members of the congregation on the March for Immigrant New York on this past Sunday. On Wednesday, December 20th, I and several members of the congregation plan to stand with the local chapter of the nationwide Jewish Boys for Peace Action to say no to Islamophobia, anti-Muslim violence, and racism in all forms. I end with a quote by the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that."
Thank you. Our next speaker is Kay. Does that sound familiar? It's kind of hard to do right in here. Viteri? Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of all of you. I have 3 issues to talk about, 3 of your things that you're going to be discussing tonight. And since we're talking about passing a resolution for sanctuary cities, I'm truly opposed to it. My father and my grandparents came over from Poland. I'm an immigrant. I'm an American-born immigrant. They came through Ellis Island. And the reason they came through Ellis Island is because the United States of America, including Kingston, New York, has rules and regulations of how to come into this country legally. We're not pushing anybody out that is legally out of our area. We've never treated anybody disrespectfully when they're legally come in. We all have to pay our dues, we all have to pay our taxes, we all have to work hard. But why would we want to give ourselves, with 22-some thousand people in the city of Kingston, put them at risk for what's going on in our world? Now, the Sinterklaas celebration over in Rhinebeck created quite a stir. It was talking about bomb threats and illegal assailants on people enjoying the holiday. It has been proven that some of these people that are looking to harm us are illegal immigrants. They don't have our interests at heart. And there's no reason anybody who comes into our fair city should not be legal. I mean, we have ways to make them legal. If we have all our clergy and our ministers and our rabbis very interested in this, let them help them to get legal in our town. But we cannot become a small community inviting everyone. We don't have the money. We don't have the ways or means. We have enough burden in this city that doesn't produce jobs, that doesn't create jobs. I am totally against this because I am a small business owner. I have to pay higher and higher taxes for every low-income housing project that you advertise in the city of Kingston and the outskirts. They go on our welfare system, our social service system in one form or another. We built this beautiful lace curtain factory. Less than 30% are filled with artists. And that's what it was built for. Struggling artists. And are there struggling artists? No. We're advertising. We get one-way bus tickets from people from Long Island, New York City to come to our area. And you're asking the regular working people to pick up the tab. We have to pick up their school tab, we have to do a pilot program, we have to give them services. How much can you put on us working people? Don't we count? Don't the homeowners of this community count? Our taxes are higher and higher. We're equal to Westchester, and we have no jobs. You're not offering jobs. You're not offering discounts for companies to come in. It's really a shame. And now you're asking us to be a sanctuary city. You're asking for trouble. Where are you protecting me? Am I protected? We're going to protect all these outsiders who are coming in illegally. That's what we're saying here. Yes, we're welcoming if you're legal. If you're not and you need help, go see your advisors, go see your government people, go see your aldermen. That's what they're here to help you. The other thing is the almshouse, the zoning. Rubco used to be a wonderful company that used to come in, you used to go in neighborhoods and fix up smaller houses and smaller dwellings for people in need. Now they've become this big conglomerate. They're taking on bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger projects. And we have to say to ourselves, why? Is this what we're producing? Just nothing but low-income housing? In low-income housing people? Is this what we're saying that this community is producing to the world? What they're doing is they're advertising, they're getting bonus money. And I like to know where all this bonus money is going, these tax paying. They get 18% for bringing the project under, whether it's bad or not. They just redid the floors because there was lead and asbestos in the floor, and they had to put up security cameras because people were destroying the place. This is what we're attracting. We don't know the backgrounds of everybody, but we're willing to help everybody. But no one's protecting me. I have 3 issues to talk about. And the other thing is the Irish Cultural Center. This is someone, they're raising their money, they're doing it all on their own, and parking became an issue, and of course, I'm all for it. I've been very supportive. One thing I wanted to say about this cultural center is with the parking, we have a park, and the lower portion of the park, just around the corner from this, is never being used. And my suggestion, which I have made to several people, is why don't we take half of that park on Word Street and turn it into a parking area for a hall, a place that can grow and create jobs and create money and for the city and the good for the city. They're not asking you for money, they're just asking you for parking allowance and building specs. I just, for once, would like all of you to consider the residents, the people who have lived here, who worked here, who came in as immigrants legally. And let's keep it that way. Thank you.
Jean Jacobs. Good evening. My name is Jean Jacobs, and I live at 139 Wall Street, Kingston, New York. I am a lifelong resident, born and raised in this city, and my feet are still grounded. I'm proud to be a Kingstonian, and I have watched Kingston over the years, and I am here tonight in opposition for Kingston to become a sanctuary city. There is no one that respects more than I. I think I'm known in the community over the years, serving as a community activist, supporting all levels of what I believe in is right. But ladies and gentlemen, I say the word illegal. I have such an issue with that. That is something, there are ways and means, there are policies and procedures, there are standards of compliance that allow that opportunity to any individual to become legal. We, the middle class here in the city of Kingston, have taken on a huge responsibility. Middle class, over the course of the United States of America, and including Kingston, I recently did my research on the poverty level locally, the jobs. It's wonderful that people are coming here from New York City. That's wonderful. They're working in New York City, okay? We are living at a poverty level of 45% of Ulster County in poverty. A family of four at $22,480 a month. What are we opening our doors to here? I respect religion, totally. What are we teaching our children? I think that we really need to rethink this. I understand that it is a memorializing resolution, but the after effect and the impact that it is going to have on our city, I urge you to look that over in its entirety, please. The second issue that I would like to bring to your attention this evening is the low-income housing. What are we promoting here? I am so concerned about the RUCCO now and the ARMS project. I'm all about a needs assessment, goals and objectives, a timeline, and a cost venture. What is this going to cost our community? I still have to pay taxes. I am a senior. So I urge all of you this evening, and I thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Adrian DeFresne.
Adrian Dufresne. I have a letter that Lawrence McCauley from I have a letter from Lawrence McCauley that lives on Andrew Street. I'd like to read that. I strongly oppose the zoning change to allow the almshouse to be utilized for low-income or affordable housing. I believe this property has the potential for a much more productive use. I'm also in opposition to Kingston being designated a sanctuary city for undocumented immigrants. I have nothing against immigration, but fully expect it to be executed legally. Thank you. And on my own, once again, I'd like to reiterate from the previous planning board meeting on December 12th, an environment that could generate income for the city. For example, small businesses, boutiques, craft shops, supplies, doctor's offices, language classes, book and music stores, all in its current status at the house. Does RUCCO have any idea the amount of money needed to renovate this grand structure to their intended usage? Their rent could possibly be, their plan could possibly become a nightmare to the residents in our neighborhood, and I'm sure all of us would agree to that live in our area. Thank you.
Andrea Callan.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity to address all of you this evening. My name is Andrea Callan. I'm a resident of Kingston. I live down in Rondo. We love it here. Love my home. I'm excited to stay for many, many years to come. So I'm up here tonight to support and applaud Mayor Noble in introducing his resolution to ensure that Kingston's large and vibrant and contributory immigrant community here is protected. I do want to take a moment, I think, to clarify a little bit about what a sanctuary city is and what that means. Maybe I should qualify myself a little bit by letting you all know that I am an attorney with a constitutional law and civil rights and worker rights background. So hopefully I know a little bit something about this. So a sanctuary city can mean many, many different things, and I just want to really talk about what the proposal is that Mayor Noble has proposed tonight. And what that policy would simply do is really just enshrine and memorialize the fact that local law enforcement agents are not federal law enforcement agents. For many years, in the absence of any federal action on the issue of immigration reform, we have had comprehensive immigration reform for years now. Localities have taken it under their wing to enact law and policy in either direction, whether to be more harmful to immigrant communities or to be more welcoming to immigrant communities. So we're very happy to see the step that we're taking here tonight, which is more welcoming. But that, again, doesn't enshrine the fact here simply the only thing that sanctuary will mean in this particular sense is that our local Kingston Police Department will not be inquiring into the immigration status of individuals to whom those law enforcement agents perceive, not know, perceive, to perhaps be undocumented in the United States. However, local law enforcement agents are not trained on what immigration documents look like. They are not trained to look at the indicia of what could rise to reasonable suspicion, let alone probable cause of the factors that you have to analyze to decide whether or not someone is ripe for questioning under suspicion of a violation of the law. So really what the Kingston Police Department would be doing in this fashion is actually really protecting themselves against liability for litigation, because when local police agents who are not trained to enforce federal immigration law take that into their own hands, I can assure you there's a whole lot of racial profiling that goes into that. When there's racial profiling, that opens up our city to litigation and to liability for basically subverting the law and violating our civil rights. So I do want to clarify that I do not believe that the sanctuary policy that we have put forth, that Mayor Noble has put forth, also would really create the kind of sanctuary city that I think is being talked about in the media right now that is a far extreme, where we're talking about the loss of federal funding. There is nothing in the resolution that Mayor Noble has put forward today that would, as far as we can tell so far, risk our federal funding. We are not saying through this resolution that we would be defying any federal law that the city is obligated to follow. In fact, there is language in the resolution to protect for exactly that exception. Again, I don't think that there's any real legal risk. In fact, this is more of a legal protection to our city to protect us against lawsuits for improper civil infringements on civil rights. But further, I just also want to say, just away from the legal perspective, I really urge you all to reject the fear-mongering that I think goes on in this fear of the other. There's already a huge, vibrant immigrant community here in Kingston that is growing our community. I don't know about you, but I see lots of businesses that are popping up around town that are started by Latino families and families of color, and I think that that's a really, really beautiful thing, and I really cherish that in the community that I live in. I don't think that anyone is out to take something away from another person, and I think there's enough of the pie that we can all share if we allow ourselves to be inclusive of one another. Thank you.
Justin Johnson.
Good evening. My name is Pastor Justin Johnson. I live at 163 West Chestnut Street in Kingston. I've been a resident of the Hudson Valley since 1992, although I had a brief stint for 15 years in Rochester, New York. I speak in favor of the resolution to make Kingston a sanctuary city. I want to do this by thanking the Common Council. I want to thank you for your willingness to hear and listen and even just to consider this important resolution. It comes from the Kingston Council of Churches and the Clergy Alliance members. As stated earlier, 21 members of the clergy find this important. I would like to affirm your commitment to also work alongside the Kingston Police, as they are doing an incredible job of protecting our city and safety. I agree with the resolution that to change their job to that being of an INS enforcer would harm our community and ultimately change the job description of our women and men on the police force. It would create a climate of checking status purely on skin color, which is also harmful to our city. I'm also thanking you to consider this resolution on behalf of Mary. I've changed her name to help protect her identity. Mary was a member of mine who was undocumented. Her intent was to become a citizen of the United States. Now she was married to an American and had children in America. She spoke English, she worked for her husband, and they paid their taxes regularly. After paying the numerous fees to become a citizen, she missed her interview appointment because she was diagnosed with breast cancer and had to go for a life-saving infusion. It was a difficult choice for her, but her health was the primary concern. By missing her sole appointment, she missed her chance to become a U.S. citizen. She was now considered an undocumented citizen, which began a fear that she was going to be taken away from her husband and her children. I personally called lawyers on her behalf and because she was afraid to call them herself. I found out that her only option for her at this point was deportation. You miss your date, and there is no second chance. She became afraid of going to the doctor, fearing that the doctor would turn her into INS. She passed away due to breast cancer because of a system that didn't allow for a second chance. So I'm thanking you on behalf of Mary, who was an undocumented citizen at her death. I'm thanking you for taking up this issue for the other Marys out there who are facing similar situations. As a pastor, I've met many and many. I know there is a great fear of losing federal funding. This fear also comes without knowledge, because the president does not have the power to take away federal funding. That's not up to the president. There's also been a swing in feelings, especially conservative, towards undocumented people. But I happen to agree with President Reagan and President Bush, who allowed amnesty in this country. And through their amnesty policies, allowed 3 million people to become Americans. I agree with their policies rather than this new climate. As a half-Native American, I'd also like to just add a little joke in that most of the people sitting in here are undocumented immigrants. That's a joke. In my context, Jesus calls people toward caring for the immigrant and the alien, taking care of them to the best of our ability. So as a pastor here of a church here in Kingston, Trinity Lutheran Church, one of the oldest churches in Kingston, I'm speaking a word of thanks and encouraging passing this important resolution. Thank you.
Jim Rao.
Good evening. My name is Jim Rowe. I live at 200 Down Street in Midtown, and I have the privilege of being the pastor at Redeemer Lutheran Church in the Rondo. The neighborhood in which I live and the neighborhood in which I serve, they're both incredibly diverse and truly a gift, I believe, to the community at large. I speak to you tonight in favor of the resolution reaffirming Kingston's current practice as a welcoming and inclusive city, because I've personally seen the effects that U.S. immigration practices have upon individuals and other communities that I have called home in my lifetime. And I do not wish to see the same happen here. As a seminary student, I witnessed the drastic aftermath of an immigration raid on a meatpacking plant in Postville, Iowa. 389 undocumented workers were arrested, shooted through a legal processing system that cut off their civil rights to defend themselves, and then were detained like cattle at a cattle exhibit hall. While abuses of these immigrant workers were reported, the immigration system proved no fairer in the following months, as 300 of those immigrants were deported, separating parents from their children, when the churches and the communities stepped in. And in the days and the months following, more than 1,000 individuals who were not caught in the raid left the small town of 2,300. Their departure left a once thriving small community bare, devastated the local economy, shuttered the meatpacking plant and countless small businesses. That was in, I believe, 2008, and Postville still is a ghost town today. I've seen the effects that U.S. immigration practices have upon people and communities in my own personal life, and since the recent election I have heard stories every week from my neighbors who are especially concerned about what will happen to them and their children in today's political climate. I speak not only as a pastor who reads Scripture and sees Scripture as a story of immigrant people moving throughout the world, but also as a concerned citizen who cares deeply for the well-being of my neighbors, those who live next to me, and those who rely on the congregation for support. So reaffirming Kingston as a welcoming and inclusive city, I believe, is the right thing to do based on the moral grounds of human rights, biblical precedents, and even the history of our own city. Since moving here 6.5 years ago, I've actually learned that my ancestors moved to this area of New York when they fled from Germany and France, escaping war and persecution, before they ultimately settled in the Midwest. And I know many other local residents can trace their ancestry back to that time. It is my experience that recent immigrants, both documented or undocumented, are incredibly hardworking, committed to making their community better, and have come to this country seeking a better life for their families in a place away from violence and persecution. Also, when I moved here 6.5 years ago, I asked people, what's going on with Kingston? And they said, we're on the verge of something. And I asked, what are we on the verge of? And they said, I don't know. In these past 6.5 years, I've seen the immigrant communities greatly influence and help our community in incredibly positive ways. So again, I speak in favor of the resolution, and I thank you for the opportunity to speak and your willingness to hear the opinions and the ideas, not only of our mayor, but of clergy and local citizens. Thank you for all that you do for our city. And as leaders of our community, you are always in my prayers. Thank you.
Kathy Roush.
Good evening. I'm here to speak about the Rupco homeless shelter and why I don't feel it's appropriate for the Ox House. There are already so many properties in Kingston that are off the tax rolls that our tax base is constantly shrinking. We need to have a project on their property that is going to pay their fair shares and not a pilot. The $950,000 for Rupco to buy the property will be taxpayer money. Any remediation of asbestos, lead paint, etc. will be paid for with tax dollars. The renovations and furnishing of the building and the salaries for the staffing will also be paid for by the taxpayers. Mr. O'Connor stated in the Freeman that the rents would be paid by the state and Ulster County. Once again, our taxpayer dollars. If the property values in this area go down due to this project, our assessments will also go down. Since the same amount of money has to be raised by the property taxes, the other areas of Kingston will have to pick up the slack. So this project will affect the entire tax base of Kingston. And I hope you consider this when you make your decision. Thank you.
Matt Early.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to express my opinion. I'm a business owner in Midtown Kingston. I was born in Rhinebeck, and very proud of Mayor Noble for supporting the idea of declaring Kingston a sanctuary city. I love Kingston. I love coming here and working every day, and think that one of Kingston's greatest strengths is its ethnic diversity and what the ethnic and immigrant communities bring to the city. And I reject the exclusionary comments that some have made here tonight. I am not that type of person. And I see the people who, whether they're documented or not, who come to our community as contributing members of the community. They do pay taxes. That's statistically established. They pay billions of dollars every year towards Social Security, and yet they're unable to collect those benefits themselves. They pay property taxes as well as sales taxes. They pay for social services that we all enjoy. And I think it's important to note that the resolution does not change police policy or prevent the Kingston Police Force from enforcing the law or protecting the community. The resolution merely clarifies what has already been existing policy on this matter. And I think it's important to do that at this time because of the fear that's evident in the community, both on the side of the people who are at risk due to the President Trump's stated policies on immigration enforcement. Has created an atmosphere of fear on one side, and there seems to be fear on the other side, although I'm not exactly sure why. I think it's important to clarify these policies and educate the public as to what they really mean, and that it's not putting anyone in danger, and it is a benefit to our community. So I urge the council to support Mayor Noble in passing this resolution, and also strongly urge that it be followed up by documenting in official police policy what the essence of the memorialized resolution is. Thank you for allowing me.
Father Frank Alanya.
My name is Frank Alanya. I've been pastor of Holy Cross Santa Cruz Episcopal Church for the past 6 years and resident of the Hudson Valley since 1986. I'm here to speak on behalf of the mayor's move to have Kingston declared a sanctuary city. And as I thought about this, I come at it from very different places in my own life. It's all very personal to me. I began my ministry as a priest 46 years ago in Hong Kong. At that time, my time was spent rescuing refugees who had fled from mainland China at the time. That's when the border was closed. People found their way and made their way into Hong Kong wanting to have life, a life that was not available to them where they lived before. My own grandparents were immigrants from Sicily. They left Sicily because they were desperately poor. At that time in our nation, we welcomed people who needed to come here because they could not make a life for themselves where they were coming from. Over the years, that has changed. Our immigration, the openness to immigration of people who have come from desperate places has gotten smaller and smaller. And it is not easy for anybody to apply and be considered for to become a resident or a citizen of the United States. You have to bring money to the table to do that. And most of the people who come to us don't have that, and that's the very reason they're leaving their homes and their families. A few weeks ago, I picked up an undocumented worker in the Bronx. I received a phone call at 7:30 at night that he was going to be dropped off at a Sunoco station on Jerome Avenue. drove down to the station, waited in my car, the van pulled in. I went over to the van when the window was rolled down. The person I was picking up identified me as a safe person to the driver. I gave the driver $600 so that he could transport for his transportation of this individual from Texas to New York. And I asked the person I picked up on the ride up, how is it that you were able to make your way into the country again this time? He had been coming up since the age of 17 and things got difficult a number of years ago with 9/11. And twice he was stopped at the border. Once he was sent back. The second time he was arrested, put in jail in Arizona for 2 months. He was not allowed to call his wife and let her know where he was. This time he made it. And I said, well, how did you make it across this time? He said, well, this time I used the coyotes. They took us to the border. On the Mexican side of the border, the immigration police came across in their van. The coyotes paid $2,000 a head for each of the people in the van. The people then were transported and placed in the ICE van and were taken across the border and put in a safe house. It's a business operation, not for everybody who's policing the border, but obviously for some people who are policing the border. The person coming across the border was no criminal. He needed to come so that he could make money to support his wife and his 2 children. He was able to do that where he was coming from. When I look at my congregation on Sunday, I see all sorts of good people. People who have been here for many years, some of whom are documented, some of whom are undocumented, all of whom work hard, some of whom work 2 jobs or 3 jobs, all of whom pay taxes. And all they want is the opportunity to be processed so that they can become citizens. Many of them can't go through that process. They won't be allowed to go through that process. And as a result, I see faces in my congregation, some of whom are facing the prospect of a father being ripped out of his family because his wife is documented and his 2 children are citizens, but he can't get his papers. There's so much fear and so much pain. And I think it would be an awesome thing for we as residents of this city and as people who care about each other to make it possible for people who are here to stay here and feel safe while they're here and to continue to have their life and their future. Thank you.
Paul Kashar.
Good evening. My name is Paul Kashar. I live at 387 Clifton Avenue. My father lives at 295 Flatbush Avenue, property which my brothers and I currently own. And I'm here tonight to implore the Laws and Rules Committee to strictly enforce zoning and planning on the Alms House project going forward. The scope of this project and its enormity is inappropriate for the neighborhood. Perhaps the people that sat in your seats many years ago zoned this property RR to protect this from occurring. Perhaps the people in the planning board many years ago also it's kind of near and dear to me because my family moved here in 1929. I live in my grandfather's house, which I painstakingly took time to restore to its natural beauty. And my neighbors and I are very passionate about our neighborhood. We keep our properties in excellent condition, and we're extremely concerned about what happens to this property. If you look at the scope of the plan, RUPCO would like to destroy the landscaping by adding 85 parking spaces, okay? When John Wood designed this property and built it in 1873, 10 years before my home was built, I would think that the landscaping was an extremely important part of this project. I think you can't look at this building with a historic perspective without looking at the landscaping and the impact to the community. When the county put in a parking lot where my friends and I used to play many, many times, football and baseball when we were children, we were disappointed. But as we grew, we found other places to play, like Hutton Park. Ralco, in the proposal, would like to construct a 4-story building in that spot. I think it's inappropriate. I also think it's inappropriate that the Historic Preservation Committee rubber stamped a decision to change the zoning on this property. A non-zoning entity, a non-planning entity, rubber stamped the decision to change the zoning. So I am imploring the Laws and Rules Committee to make the planning board and zoning board strictly adhere to the process. I'm doing this on behalf of myself, but I'm also doing it on behalf of my neighbors. Mr. Rao, the Cherneys, the Merciers, the Roushes, okay, the Fasanos, the Aiellos, people that have grown up, raised their families, and have taken great pride in this neighborhood are extremely concerned. Thank you.
Leo Shaw.
Good evening. My name is Leo Shupp. I live at 39 Deeds Court. My family, well, I am the grandson and great-grandson of immigrants. My family has lived in the Rondout area of Kingston for well over 100 years. The Sanctuary City memorializing resolution is pointless and a waste of time. Let's face it, this resolution isn't going to change anything. The emergency responders will continue to respond, and benefits will still be administered. It is not the KPB's job to deport individuals. They don't do it now. They won't do it later, no matter what happens here tonight. We can be certain that Gestapo-like tactics won't be employed either here or anywhere in this country. If you really believe otherwise, you don't have a lot of faith in us as Americans. As a matter, if there are any undocumented people here tonight, I'm sure they came here securing the knowledge that the one arm of the law will not be bearing the exits.
Can you speak up?
The reality most likely is that any undocumented individual will never feel comfortable as long as they are undocumented. This feel-good legislation isn't going to change that. Stop treating Kingston like some well-meaning non-profit organization. Get down to the business of running Kingston like the multi-million-dollar corporation that it is. Thank you.
That concludes all of the speakers who have signed up. Do we have anyone else who's interested in speaking? At this time, please take the podium.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Myrna Capaldi, and I've lived here for 25 years. I am here to support Mayor Noble's decision and to clarify some of the statements that have been made in opposition of Kingston becoming a sanctuary city. First, I would like to address the question that one of the people who opposed asked, and that was, who are we opening our doors to? We are opening our doors to human beings like you and I, who deserve the same dignity and respect that we all expect from others. We're a small, welcoming community and always have been. I would like to see that stay the same.
The second issue that I would like to address was that somebody said, these people don't pay taxes and they don't contribute. That is untrue. I've never been to the gas station where an undocumented person was filling up their tank with gas and the people from inside came out and said, you don't need to pay the gas taxes. I have never been to Walmart when there has been somebody undocumented at the cash register paying for their purchases and the cashier has said, you're undocumented, you don't need to pay those taxes. People who are here undocumented have the access to apply for ITIN numbers, which are the equivalent of Social Security numbers, and most of them have them. They pay taxes. And another thing that I would like to address is that somebody said that undocumented people become public charges. You are misinformed. Undocumented people do not qualify for food stamps. They do not qualify for rental assistance. They don't qualify for medical insurance. They contribute to our community. They are the people who clean up after you at the restaurants. They cut your grass. They take care of the children of the wealthy in counties like Westchester, New York City. They clean up your mess after you leave your hotel room. So they are contributing to our community. This sanctuary proposal does not mean that we are going to fill up buses of people coming from other places and say, here, everybody can. We are just here to support our neighbors, our friends, the people that walk on our streets every day. And so, having said this, I support and I encourage Major Noble to please follow through with the proposal for sanctuary. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Miguel Agustin. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist, and as a Christian, me and my family, we always look for the good of the community. And I'm the father of Raul Agustin. He is an officer of the United States Air Force. And we are in this country, but we always want to serve. And that's what we do. My son, as we are talking, as I'm speaking right now, as we are all gathered over here, my son is right now in service in one of those countries overseas. And as you see, we want to be useful to the community. And I thank you so much for the opportunity that you guys are giving me to say these few words. And I'm sorry if I say maybe they're wrong. I have to ask you guys to forgive me. But maybe I'm just too excited. I'm sorry. But yes, we always want to serve, and we are here to help and to serve, and we always look for the good and the well-being of the community. And like I said, my son, he is an officer of the Air Force in this country. And thank you so much for accepting me, and thank you so much for this meeting. I appreciate it. God bless you all, and thank you so very much.
Good evening. My name is Artemio Guerra. I'm a homeowner on the Perkins Boulevard. We've been in Kingston since May of last year. We bought our first home here.